Hi and welcome to another episode of Career Stories. My name's Carrie.
This is Jamie.
And we're here with Joy Dunlop from Speak Gaelic, BBC Alba and Scotland. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So Joy is a multi-talented, multi-skilled, award-winning presenter, singer, recording artist, dancer, teacher. Is there any time for anything else?
I mean, I do a lot of work, but everything I do is very enjoyable, so it kind of doesn't feel like work, to be honest.
So you can find Joy on TV, presenting the weather updates on BBC Scotland, as well as hosting the Speak Gaelic programme on BBC Alba. So you're also the director. Now, I'm going to absolutely butcher this because I've already forgotten how to say it. So it's...
Go for it. You can do it. I have faith in you.
I've forgotten it already.
Seachtain na Gaelic.
Seachtain na Gaelic. So that's World Gaelic Week, which is now in its 5th year of being a campaign to promote the language and its cultural heritage. So this year's theme is Use It or Lose It.
Yeah.
Amazing. So before we get right into it, I would love to ask you, because we've been asking this from lots of our guests recently, about what was your first job and what did you spend your first pay on? Just as a wee starter.
I remember thinking I was going to be going to university, and actually I hadn't had a proper job before then. I had done wee bits here and there, singing and a bit of music. Yeah. But I worked in the farm shop in Comhairliche, which is a tiny wee village I come from, and it was quite clear as soon as I went in there I had nothing. I just had no idea what I was doing, really, because I was working with, even it sounds so odd, but like selling cuts of meat that I thought, I don't know what they were. So I did that for a summer just to save money, and I actually saved all my money so I could go and buy like clothes for going to uni and all like the wee things that I thought that I needed.
Oh, that's lovely. So yeah, so you as much as you had that first sort of paycheck, you had that sort of common sense to save it and then splurge it all.
Well, I had to, because I had nothing. I did that thing where I left school quite quickly after 5th year, because I realised I didn't want to stay on to do my 6th year, and I had a plan. So I also had to turn things round, and I was like, I don't have a penny here. And I'm not ready. I don't have anything to go to uni. So it was a bit of a splurge in some ways.
Yeah. But needed splurge.
Yeah, I needed splurge. I felt like I earned every penny of that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So you said about like where you were from and things like that. So where did you grow up, and how do you feel like that sort of environment shaped your kind of early on thoughts on jobs, careers?
So I'm from Comhairliche, which is a tiny wee village just outside Oban.
Okay.
And so I went to primary school in our village primary, which was, I think when I started, we had 24 pupils. And then at one point it grew to 36, which was quite exciting. But when I went to secondary school, it was me and one boy. That was my class. We went to Oban High, which I think at that point had about 1,400 people. So it was very different for me, although we were only 5 miles out of the town. And I think, I was quite lucky in some ways that I grew up surrounded by traditional music, and I didn't speak Gaelic when I was wee, but I sang in Gaelic because I'd learned that. But never did I think that was going to be a career option. And I was a bit of a swot when I was in school, and I liked doing well, but I didn't know really what I wanted to do. And that was something that really panicked me at the time, because I remember thinking very clearly, it felt like when you went in first year, people were already going, what are you going to do? You remember your choice is going to impact your life, and you have to take this really seriously. And for somebody that did take things like that very seriously, it was a worry. And we didn't really have an awful lot of careers advice then. It was kind of assumed if you were academic that you would be a doctor or you'd be a lawyer, maybe a teacher. But that was kind of the idea, and I quite liked the idea of actually doing medicine. That was my plan at first, because I like blood and guts and get involved in that way. So that sort of suited me. But at the same time, I was a wee bit panicky, like, is this something that suits me? Is this what I should be doing in that way? And in the end, I didn't end up doing that at all.
I think that's so funny though, because I think a lot of the time when we're speaking to people, there is this panic, especially the young people who feel like there is that sort of, as soon as you're at high school, people do start asking you, what are you going to be when you're older? And it feels like a bigger question than when you're at primary school.
Yeah, it's strange.
And you find that for some people, they'll go, I don't know. And they're not that bothered, but there is a lot of them who are going, I don't know. And that's this huge, big fear, because they're like, I have to decide. And then they can almost, like, I had a friend at school who she said she wanted to be a lawyer. I don't think she really did want to be a lawyer, but she'd said it so many times that she's like, I have to do this now. So the fact that you could go, right, I'm thinking medicine as an idea, but then you were able to pivot, that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember even doing my second to third year choices then. They were really pushing like, this is, you've got to make a choice. And I made a choice, then took a massive panic and changed them all.
Oh, no.
Because I thought, actually, I think I want to do medicine. And I dropped some of the languages and the kind of side I think that I enjoyed, and I picked up sciences, which I could do, but they definitely weren't my strong point. And then I remember having the same panic in fifth year, going, I don't really know what I'm going to do, and I picked the subjects that I felt like I should be doing rather than the ones I wanted to do. And then actually when it came to my sixth year and the columns came out, there was nothing that I wanted to do, and that for me was a real panic. As I said, I was like, no, definitely a SWOT. I took it seriously. I wanted to do well, and having a huge panic that I couldn't work out how to make this work for me. And actually my mum had said to me, well, why don't you leave school then? You've got, because I knew I'd have my hires. That was kind of in the bag. She was like, go and do something for a year, but do something that'll be useful for you. And she knew I was interested in Gaelic and music, and I'd been up to sònraichte, the Gaelic college in Isle of Skye, in the summertime to do short courses. And it was her that said to me, why don't you go up there for a year, do something useful that'll get you to fluency, and then after that you can go back to medicine, or you can make another decision. But it was very much quite a spur of the minute decision, which wasn't something I had ever done. I was always very like well planned and took things seriously.
High risk, high reward. It paid off.
Definitely. And like when I went up there, I was only going to go for a year. I was only 17 when I went up, and it was just the perfect place for me at that time, and I loved it. And I stayed eventually. I did a full 4 years, my honours degree there, and it was brilliant. But that was not my plan at the beginning at all.
I think that's so good to be able to recognise that and see that maybe it's not the plan, but actually the plan wasn't the right thing in the first place, because it's about how you feel when you're in it. That's why I'll so often say to people, it's about going to things, go to the open days, go and visit, because that feeling of belonging, because if you're going to be somewhere, as much as the course is super important, obviously, you're going to be there for 4 years. You want to belong and feel like a part of something. Happy. Yes,
that's so important. And I know you hear it said an awful lot, like there's no wrong path. But there really is no wrong path. And you are genuinely so young at that point that if you take a few years to change things in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to make any difference. You're not going to be that much behind. But maybe when you're 15, 16 and you're thinking, if I take 2 years out, I could end up, imagine starting at 20, which at that point seems like you're ancient.
That really is a kind of mindset thing, isn't it? It's about that kind of growth mindset about that even though you take experiences as negative as you make it, I suppose. So even if something doesn't work out, well, you know that now, and now you can move on in a kind of better space. So you can take the positives from things. Yeah,
definitely. And I think that's in recognising when something feels like home and it feels right for you, and being able to go, I did this.
And you never know where that will take you. And it might be something that just happens for a wee while. And it might be that it's right for you at that point, but then that changes. And again, that's okay too. It's just about trial and error very much. Definitely. And particularly nowadays, it's different to when like even my parents were at home. Like my dad worked in the same job all his life. And it was like you maybe worked up the company or like you picked a trade. He was an electrician and then he sort of worked through the company in that way. Whereas like I had to explain to my parents the difference between self-employed and unemployed. As they were telling everybody that Joy's now unemployed. I was like, I really haven't. I'm working very hard right now. But it was something that they didn't understand. Like my dad was an electrician, my mum was a teacher. So it was quite strict jobs. You could tell somebody what you did.
Whereas there's this path into
absolutely. But I'm still going, I do a wee bit of this, I do a wee bit of that. And that becomes a job. And particularly if you're able to do it genuinely, and I know it sounds like a cliche, but if you're doing something that you really enjoy, that's the most important thing, because you spend most of your life working. So do something that's fun, that you get something out of.
I say that all the time to people about how this sort of, they're even in, like, I love my job, and there's still days where I'm like, I cannot be bothered going in. Imagine if every day was like that. You want most days to be like, yep, it's good, I love it. And even on the days that I can't be bothered, by the time I'm at lunchtime, I'm fine.
And even every good job has rubbish bits. There's always going to be bits you don't enjoy, but you want to be enjoying more than you're not enjoying.
Exactly. And that's where the being able to pivot and to change and to kind of go, right, I like this part of my job, but I don't like this part so much. So when I'm looking for new opportunities, I'm going to lean more towards the things that I enjoy and less towards that part. And it just gives you
Absolutely.
more options, doesn't it?
Seems basic logic. Like, who goes to a restaurant and orders something they don't like? Of course you go with what you enjoy. You should, yes.
Sometimes you can try something and you go,
yeah,
that was interesting.
Yeah.
Not for me. I
Yes,
won't have that
totally.
again. But that's not a bad thing.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. So, can you tell us a bit more about when did Gaelic become important to you? Or like you mentioned about it being in primary school, so it's obviously been a part of your life and you're singing, but when did you kind of go, this is a really important thing?
Honestly, it was when I was up at sònraichte doing my degree, because I think before then I'd really enjoyed it, but I wasn't a fluent speaker. You know, I was learning as everybody would learn a second language in school, and it was never... Like at school, they didn't at that point even see it as an option.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't on the radar that it was something that I could do. But when I went up there to sònraichte, I just loved it. And it felt important, actually.
Yeah.
When I started, at first you're learning just because you're that's what you're there to do.
Yeah.
That's you're doing a degree course. So yes, you learn and you do your work. But then actually, the more you sort of get into it, for me, it was like the missing piece of the jigsaw.
Yeah.
It meant I could understand, place names, and you could I could understand what I was singing about. But actually, when you're looking around you, Scotland's built on Gaelic.
Yeah.
So much is in like people's names or like turns of phrases that we have in English have been directly translated from Gaelic, and it kind of it was that wee click moment for me. It made sense and I enjoyed it, and I thought actually I've worked really hard to learn this language and to get involved in the culture and the heritage, and I think I appreciated like how important it was and how what I'd missed not having that. And I thought I want to do this, I want to work with this and help other people gain that as well.
So was there like a sense of like duty or responsibility that kind of you adopted through your learning kind of thing?
Absolutely, and not because anybody like made me do that. It was because I wanted to be part of that. It just felt like it was such a strong culture as well, and it kind of made sense with the heritage. Growing up, hearing these songs and playing music and being, I guess, surrounded by Gaelic speakers in a way. There was always Gaelic speakers around the town. Oban being the gateway to the Isles, you'd get a lot of people come from the islands to work there, but you didn't understand them, and you'd hear people talking, and now I know all they were doing was chit-chatting, but at the time it sounded the most exciting thing. I thought, I'm missing all this that's going on. But I really enjoyed it, and I had a genuine passion for it, and it meant, I think that will always get you further in whatever you're doing. It means you'll work harder and you'll put that extra effort in, and it's something that has given me an awful lot of opportunities over the years, be it work or travel or making friends, or I feel like I'm really lucky to be part of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's something that a lot of people, like, you do feel like you're missing something. Like, this is our this is our actual heritage, and this was our language, and to have lost that is a really sad thing, isn't it? So it's a really exciting and wonderful thing to be bringing it back and being a part of that.
I mean, I think we should all be learning Gaelic and Scots. I think that's part. I understand if you've not been brought up with it, it maybe doesn't make much sense to you. You think, well, why would I want to do that? Yeah. But actually, it's like once you dive in a wee bit deeper, you start to understand everything, and we should know who we are as people, and it's not excluding anything else. That's what I love about Glasgow, is it's so multicultural, and you can really see people's heritage and understand how that means something to them and how we can learn from each other. But Gaelic and Scots are some things that are intrinsically ours. That's what it is to be Scottish. And I think sometimes it's people outside Scotland that maybe appreciate that a wee bit more, because they don't have that, and they want to experience that, and they want to know a wee bit more. And actually, it's when you start to dive a wee bit deeper, you think, actually, there's so much I don't know.
Definitely.
And that's always good. It's always good to learn. But again, you can look at it practically in different ways. It can be that you're learning for your own enjoyment. But actually now, particularly in the working world, having another language, and in Scotland having Gaelic, is a real benefit. And sometimes that can be the extra skill that you've got that will get you the job above somebody else. Or like I really realise it now with a lot of the jobs I can do it bilingually. So if they get somebody in to present a programme, I can do a Gaelic version and an English version.
So you can do...
So I'm sort of double the worth in that way, and that can be sometimes the clincher for getting a job.
Definitely, because otherwise they might have to hire two separate people. Exactly. So you can be, and it's that it's like when they're doing the dubbing of things, like on like films. So if the person can speak both languages, then that's so much less hassle for them to get someone else to do it. Definitely.
And I work in a freelance capacity, so people buy me in as such, and it means I can be like bought in by more people.
Yes.
So it's great. It means if I'm doing a weather shift, I could do a Gaelic shift or an English shift, whereas there'll be some people that can only do one.
Yeah.
And that definitely helps. It gives you more opportunities in that way, and it's been really useful for me over the years, because if they're getting me to do something in Gaelic, I can also do it in English, or vice versa. And sometimes that can really help.
Yeah, seal the deal. That last
absolutely.
little like positive, and and that's the thing when we're talking about bigging yourself up in interviews, on application and CVs and things like that, is about showing like, these are all the things that I have that are essential to what you want from me, but also look at these wee extra things that I have that make me just that little bit more interesting, exciting.
And it's really hard, I think, as a Scottish person to sell yourself. It feels very unnatural. But actually, if you're genuinely just talking about these are the skills that I have and these are the things that I can do, that seems a bit easier than be like, I am great. But actually, if you're saying, well, I can do these things and these are my skills, it's quite practical in that way. It's factual, and I think it's easier to do that than it is to go, let me tell you why I'm wonderful.
Yeah, Scottish people aren't very good at that. It's more of an American thing.
Even saying that, it makes my skin crawl.
Well, we
have
like literally all we do as careers advisors is like support people and saying how you should be bigging yourself up. You can really tell them all about yourself, sell yourself. I was applying to move from Fife to the Borders, and I got my manager Suzanne to look over my application. She's like, Carrie, you're not going to mention this, you're not going to mention that, you're not going to mention the award, this, and I'm like, Suzanne, that just sounds like I'm bragging. She's like, oh my God, Carrie. She's like, you tell people to do this all the time and you can't do it yourself. And it is so hard. And it's like, so having those things, like you say, it's a factual thing. You're not bragging, you're just stating facts.
So that's much easier. And if you can do it as if you were talking about somebody else, I always find. Because like even in your intro, I was dying here as you were talking about me, because I'm like, oh, I can't believe she's saying these things. But actually, if I was talking about you, I'd be going, oh, here are all the ways that she's great. So I think that idea of like putting you in somebody else's shoes as if you're talking about somebody else makes it much less mortifying.
It can also be the thing I'll quite often say to people when we're talking about skills and things. I'll say to them like, right, what are your skills? What are we going to put in here? And they'll go, nothing. And I'll go, okay, what would your best friend say you're good at? And actually, they're still talking about themselves, but they're thinking about how their best friend would describe them. So although they are saying the things about themselves, it feels less braggy, if that makes sense in any way at all. I think it's just that like change of mindset, isn't it? But it's a difficult thing. It's definitely a Scottish thing, I would say. So kind of bringing it back to that Gaelic side of things, you went and you learned and you did that sort of almost immersive sort of learning, and now you're in that educator's sort of spotlight. Like, how does that feel? How do you feel that's how you teach?
It's interesting because I think you always pull from what you've experienced, and I was lucky I had really good teachers, particularly that immersion year I did at Solmore, because we were learning how to speak Gaelic through Gaelic. So we were looking at the grammar, we were looking at the patterns, but we were also just trying to use the language, and I do think that is the perfect way to do it. But not everybody has that opportunity. Not everyone can take a year off to go and learn. So I think it's been really interesting. I mean, teaching as a learner is actually very useful because you had to learn yourself and you have to work out how does a language work, and then you have to know how to explain that to somebody else. It's breaking it down into a way that's easier to understand. And I've got wonderful native speaking friends that when I ask them, they go, I don't know. I just always said that. Whereas I'm the sad person that can go, I can tell you why. That is what it is. Let me introduce you to all my grammatical patterns. But actually it's really useful because it does mean that it can be quite easy to teach in that way, because I know what I had to do to learn, and I can then show in a way that hopefully will make sense to other people. Or if you're going, okay, they're not understanding because of X, Y, Z, you can go back a step and you can explain to them how to make things work. But I think that's always quite useful. You know, the best way to learn anything is actually to have to teach somebody else it and break it down. It's like if you can't explain your point to somebody else, then you don't understand your point.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's such a good point to make. And I think when you're saying about if you speak natively and it's just something that comes to you, it can be really difficult to explain. Like, I live with a house full of English people, and I'll try and explain. I'll say a Scottish phrase, and then they'll be looking at me as if I'm speaking like an alien language, and they're like, "What does that mean?" And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just means what I said, but I can't explain it other way. Whereas if you've learnt it, then
you understand
why you're saying it.
And to be honest as well, there is a level of, if you're not a native speaker and you're coming into a community, this is a language that people have, it's very important to them, they've grown up with it, it's part of their identity, then I felt quite clearly like I need to be good at this and I need to be probably better than in some ways native speakers because you have to fit in and you've got to. I was just very aware of the importance of a language. So it kind of gives you that extra impetus because the last thing you want is, particularly if you're trying to work, if you're working in Gaeldom, if you want to be, a Gaelic speaking influencer, then you have to be able to speak the language well. It's a basic skill. Definitely. And I never wanted people to go, oh, well, I mean, she's trying to do that, but actually she's awful. And it was interesting because now, like, I present Speak Gaelic, which is a whole course about teaching people to speak Gaelic. And I was very aware that for that, we had to be so correct because you wouldn't ever want to offend anybody. And I was lucky I worked with a wonderful team of a mixture of learners, but also a lot of native speakers. We were checking everything and making sure it was as correct as it could be because it means something. It's people's identity and it's their culture and it's part and parcel of who they are. So that there's an importance to that.
Yeah. And I think as learners, for anyone learning another language, it's the try that's important.
Absolutely. Language is a lot about muscle memory and it's about like training your brain to work and you have to do that training. It's kind of like riding the bike again, you're going to fall off a lot of times. Totally. Yeah. And that's all right if you learn from it. But if you just give up and go, well, I can't do this, you're never going to get past that level. And that's learning anything.
Yeah. And I do think there is, I don't know, is this a myth or is it not? But I've always been told it's easier to learn a language when you're younger, and there will be truth in that, but it's almost like that then gets into your head, well, it was easier to learn it when I was younger, so there's no point trying now. But I think
there's two things. Wee brains are like sponges and they just soak up everything. But they're also learning everything at that time. So they're open, they're learning English or they're learning maths or they're learning how to walk. They're learning everything at that age. So it's just another thing that they're learning. Whereas adults, we question everything.
Yes.
And sometimes you can get caught up on semantics. So whatever you're learning, it's like, just do it. And it's kind of, that's the immersion side of it, sort of throwing you off the deep end and making you do it, which you're doing with everything. And if you were learning to drive as an adult you'd never driven before, you wouldn't expect him to get in behind that wheel and be perfect.
No, exactly.
You'd expect that you'd be stalling a lot. You'd expect that you'd accidentally hit the accelerator instead of the brake. All these things that we did the first time round. You get that now, and as you're getting older, your brain slows down a wee bit because there's an awful lot of stuff in there.
Yes.
I think I've lost space in my brain. The
stuff
older
keeps
I've got,
coming as well.
There's
It
a wee
never
bit
stops.
of space left in there. But it takes a wee while, but it's worth it. And learning is what keeps your brain young as well.
Yes.
It's really good for that.
Say you don't use it, you lose it.
Totally.
100%.
100%.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing and it's so interesting, and I just think it's definitely I know what I'm going to go and watch tonight. I'll be fluent by 10 years from now.
It is a wee bit of a trying and just
making the effort.
bake your bake, little by little.
I'll see if I can get my English house to learn some Gaelic.
I have huge faith in you.
Make it fun. But so you spoke about singing.
Yes.
So I hear you're a talented singer as well. And then you sing in Gaelic as well. And you dance, you event host. How do you balance that?
I really enjoy juggling lots of different things.
Actual juggling.
No, please don't give me actual juggling. I also have no hand-eye coordination. But I think it's the interesting thing. I mean, I've worked now in a freelance capacity for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And what I realised suits me is doing lots of different things because it keeps it interesting.
Yes.
And it keeps the challenge there for me. So I think if I was doing the same thing all the time, I would start to lose interest a bit. But actually that's the really exciting thing about being able to do lots of different things is that you never know which way you're going to get pulled. You never know what opportunities are going to come up and what skills you're going to have to utilise. And it's quite funny because I think I learned a lot of these skills quite practically when I was younger. Singing at Cayley's, for example, taught me to stand up in front of people, and it taught me how to introduce my songs, which meant I had to learn to speak. And you had to get over the nerves because nobody ever believes me when I tell them, inherently, I'm quite a shy person. And But I'm happy to stand up in front of how many people and talk if I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
So it's that idea of like being really prepared, and if I get an opportunity offered to me, it's going, well, do I think I can do that?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can be looking at it thinking, no, that's a bit out with my comfort zone. But is it one of these ones where you're like, actually, if I do enough work, if I prepare properly, and I can pull on the other skills that I've got, I can do this. Or is it something that I go, that is just not for me?
No.
It's not going to be something I'm good at. It's not going to be something that I can learn.
Yeah.
I love learning new things. And as a freelancer, it's great to be able to pick up new skills and try something different. But there are always bits where you go, that's not for me. I can't. Even, I'll give most things a go, but that is too much. And that juggling, you just have to be really organised and quite quick at what you're doing, but work hard. It's not like there's any great secret, or it's not like I have mega skills compared to anybody else.
I was going to actually ask about that, because obviously for being so versatile and having, I suppose, been involved in so many things and being so successful at so many things, you've got to be, there's a certain mindset, like I said before, and a kind of internal drive for a person to have that. Has that always been the case? Is that something that you've been conscious of? How has that developed over your career in life?
I think so. I think I always, and it's probably some of it's to do with upbringing and how, and even in school, even primary school, how you learn. We were always just taught to do our best.
Yeah.
And again, we were a very small primary school with lots of different ranges of things we were good at, things we weren't good at, and that idea of just always trying to do our best. And I mean, my mum was a primary school teacher, so I think we got that home as well. It was, my dad obviously is like a very hard worker. You can see that's like built in.
Yeah.
So I think that idea of, wanting to do things well and wanting to do as much as I can to challenge myself is always in there. But if you said, like, are you driven? Are you ambitious? I would have always gone, well, I don't think so. Not really. But yeah, I like to do things. And definitely when I started working, all of a sudden, it was the first time I'd ever been like aware of people going, oh, you're doing an awful lot for a girl. And I was like, oh, okay, I come from a family of boys, and I had come from that kind of idea that didn't really matter. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, there's an interesting angle here of, I realised I didn't want to be kind of sidelined in that way. And sometimes when you're young, you have to kind of fight a wee bit for what you want to do without really realising it. And I was like, I'm not here to be like handing out drinks. Like, I want to be doing the job. And I want to be the one that's like practically doing the different roles. But that involved work. And sometimes, like my first job, I started doing I was like a community development worker. And I had no team and no budget. It was me in my office, which was a cupboard. And literally it was like, well, whatever I want to do, I'm going to have to do. And I didn't realise it at all at the time. I was like really enthusiastic. I was so excited. But in some ways it gave me so many skills, because I had to learn how to do everything. If I wanted to run an event, I had to literally run the event. I had to do the event. I had to tidy up the event. I had to advertise. I did every single thing.
Proper one-man band.
Yeah.
And women band.
Yeah, but it sort of, I never really thought anything of it. It was kind of like, well, if you want to do it, you've got to make it happen. And it was hard at times, really hard. But it also gives you lots of different avenues in that way. And I think if you're willing to give things a try and make mistakes and learn from them. There were some things that were disasters, but you went, okay, I see where I went wrong there. I will not do that again. And you learn from that way.
And that's that power of like self-awareness, but also reflecting on things. And it's always good to have people that you can reflect on things with and say, this is what I did and this is how it went, and I'm not totally sure how I could have done it differently, and then usually having those conversations, you can kind of, by having like a strong, especially being self-employed and freelance, you're going to have people to almost go through things with, because usually for us, we're in a team. So whether that team is the school that I work in, the college that I work in, my Skills Development Scotland colleagues, you've got these people to kind of work with. Whereas when you're freelance, you would have to build your team around you of who to talk to.
You build your team around you, but also I think you become quite self-sufficient. So actually, I don't have to double check things with anyone else. And that kind of like trusting yourself comes to the fore, because most of the time, there aren't people to ask. No. Actually, so you've got to make the decisions. And so it's very much that idea of, right, I'm going to commit to do this. And then constructive criticism. There is nothing wrong with looking at something and going, okay, thought this was a great idea. In practice, not pretty good idea. It didn't work. And this is why it didn't work. So doing it differently the next time, that's totally fine.
Definitely.
And I think it does. I've just got that. Like I will go out and I'll do things and I'll kind of make it happen. And I remember somebody said to me, oh, you're so confident. I'm like, I'm not. I'm really not. But I will do my best and I will make it happen. I mean, the job will be done. And sometimes I'll be learning how to do said job as I am doing it, but it will be done and I'll do it as well as I can. And that's all you can really do.
Yeah. And do you feel like you have that sort of, I always feel like whenever I'm nervous about something, I'll pretend that I'm not. So I'll pretend that I'm really confident.
Fake it till you make it.
100%. Fake it till you make it. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Everybody is doing it. And spoiler alert, for anybody younger out there, no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
I have never met somebody that says, I am brilliant at everything, I have it all worked out.
If they do, they're
a
not.
sociopath.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. Yeah.
It really doesn't. We're all still working it out.
We
And we're all trial. It's trial and error, and then it's learning and leaning on your expertise and going, I've tried this in the past, so I can do this. I've worked with that. But everybody is trying to make it work, and it is just about like doing it in a professional way, like being professional, being pleasant, being like a good person.
Yes.
That will get you further than anything else. You know, it doesn't matter how great you are. If you're awful to work with, nobody wants to work with you. And if you're a freelancer, you will not be bought in, as it were. So it's just like work here and be a nice person.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who do want to go into roles, maybe slightly different ones, but they want to be in that sort of self-employed, whether it's the trades, whether it's in like the media and things like that. But actually, that's such an important point. I've said to people, doesn't matter how amazing you are at your job, you could be the best, and if everyone hates you, they're not going to want you back. So you've got to be that pleasant, nice person.
And actually there's a lot of talented folk out there, so they will find somebody else that's talented but easy to deal with. And I have an actual rule now. I only work with nice people.
I love that.
Well, I've done it for so many years, and you've worked with folk that I thought it made me feel so unhappy trying to work with them. And at the end, especially if I'm paying someone to do a job, I don't need to pay you to make me feel terrible. I want you to do a good job. And actually there are so many talented, lovely, professional folk out there that maybe for a while it'll work for you being like that, but eventually you'll get your comeuppance and people won't want to work with you.
Exactly. So we've been kind of talking about the language sides and things like that. So you've got your, oh no, this is when I can't say it again.
Sheachcin na Gaelic.
Sheachcin na Gaelic.
Sheachcin na Gaelic.
Sheachcin na Gaelic. So that's your initiative to celebrate Gaelic. So how do you find the business side of that, the sort of like you're having to sell like merchandise, form partnerships, raise your visibility, like how is that like balancing across all the other things that you do?
That is tricky. I am very good at doing things, but I can't lie, the business side is the side I love the least. I would lead with my heart every time you want to do projects, initiatives for the good of it. And I think that's been interesting, because the idea behind Sheachcin na Gaelic was to really have a focus for the language and to provide something this 1 week that everybody, whether you've got any Gaelic or whether you're a fluent speaker, could get involved in. And like they've got Sheachcin na Gaelic in Ireland, and that's been going for nearly 130 years.
Oh wow.
They've got Mias na Gael, the month of the Gaels in Nova Scotia, and that's been going for about 45 years. So this isn't new. You know, we're on year 5 here. But it's interesting because that kind of buy-in with the heart, like, let's do this, let's get it up and running. Brilliant. Easy. Love that.
Yes.
The whole, now I have to fill in 42 forms to like try and get money, like having to apply for funding, because we're very much a cultural initiative and we have a small grants fund that we give away money. And like this year we got, I think it was 122 applications and we managed to fund 64. And I went through every single one of those applications, and every single one had worth. But all of a sudden being like, well, we only have so much money. So I can only give out so much.
I would
it was awful.
That.
I felt terrible. I didn't realise I would be the soft touch. I thought I would be the one who was like, no, we're going to do this right. And by the end of it, I was begging. I was like, please, let's see if we can find. And I literally was like Oliver on a begging bowl, going around people, seeing if we could find more money so I could give out more to other people. Because it does force you to think in another way. And It's very interesting that I'm always like, we're trying to employ on a small basis, but teams of people, and you're quite strict about like, the things they can and can't do.
Yes.
And then I was sitting there last night, you know, I think I'd worked 21 hours after doing like an early shift and doing other things and not went to bed because I have to get stuff done. And I didn't mind doing it because it was me, but I wouldn't want anyone else to do that.
Yes.
And it does force you to think in a different way, because you do have to start thinking a bit more like practically and business mindedly and filling in the forms and, you know, evaluating the financial worth of what you're doing so you can give that to a funder and go, look, we did what we said we were going to do with your money. We did more. Please give us extra funding because that can help do X, Y, Z. Suddenly there's an awful lot of paperwork that's maybe a wee bit less fun than the, yay, we love our language, let's do lots of stuff with it. But it's good, it's useful, and I'm definitely learning all the time, and I'm working with a lovely small group of passionate people who've got different skills and who've come from different environments, because I very much came from like the cultural side. But then when I look at like Susie, who's our project manager, and how organised she is, and like I in my head know everything that's going on because I'm a freelancer, but like if I get mowed down tomorrow by a bus, will other people know what's going on? It turns out no, you do need to have, you know, processes in mind, and she's so good at like setting that out and having timelines and tick boxes and doing it in a way that's really accessible but keeps you to task. And actually the more you start to work with different people, I think you're always learning. You can always take something from here and then utilise that over there. And so it's interesting, it's fascinating, and that's all you can hope, is that you just keep learning and you keep trying things, and one day I will find somebody that's going to give me lots of money so I don't have to budget ever again.
You're like, budget? What was that?
I know,
can you
imagine? Grants for everyone.
But you know what? I think that there's such a key important thing there, in that we don't need to have all the skills ourselves. It's about who you work with, and I think it's kind of put on you from when you're really wee about how important teamworking is, and you're like, oh yeah, but it is everything you do, no matter what job. Even if it is a job that you just do by yourself, there will be someone else that you work in tandem with at some point. So
you know, learn to listen to other people and, you know, look at other points of view. And sometimes, like, I'm quite strong-minded. I know in my head what I think will work. And I can have quite a clear vision of how things are going to work. And then you might talk to somebody and they go, what about this? And initially there can be that knee-jerk reaction of, oh, no, that's not what I wanted.
That's what I wanted.
But actually it's taking that step back and going, okay, will this work? And actually, do you have a way to make this work that I couldn't do? And it makes you become a bit more selfless in that way, I think.
Like leaving your ego at the door.
Totally. Nobody can work with that. Get rid of that straight away. But also just be flexible with what you're doing, and know when you need to stand your ground and know when you need to go, right, no, that is my line, that I need to have this happening. But actually, teamwork is what's going to get you through. And I really noticed this because we were working with a very small team, and actually I always wish I could pay them more, and I always wish that we could give them more, but because they enjoy what they're doing, and because we get on very well together, I know if I do an SOS help, I need this. Like yesterday I needed to get a graphic the BBC were looking for their socials, and we were going through all our online branding, and we didn't have it, and bless him, one of the members in the team goes, I could make you one if you're stuck. And he's not doing the design, but he knew that we needed it. And I was in the middle of doing something else and I didn't have time. And he put that together. And I think we've got a really good working relationship because of that. And all the time, if somebody's looking for a translation, I'll go, oh, give me 5 seconds. I can do that for you.
Exactly.
And that's
that give and take.
Call on favours when you need it. You do not need to be a martyr. Somebody else can do
100%.
it. Get them to do it. And that reciprocation will only work well for you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think it's just such an important thing. And that not feeling like you have to do everything yourself. I'm terrible for that. I'll be like, I'll keep going and keep going and keep going. And then I'll be like, to the point where I'm like, I can't do it anymore. But you have to ask. And if you ask, people want to, if you're a nice person, people want to help you.
Of course you do.
Yeah, exactly. So you've had all these different job roles. Is there like any sort of standout funny, like what's the funniest thing that's maybe happened to you within your roles?
It's interesting because you always, I think with Gaelic being quite niche, I have had some like niche moments where I'm like, this is mad, like nobody will believe this is happening, particularly with music. It can take you to wonderful places where you're a bit like, what is happening here? Where are we? And I remember I got to go over actually to New Zealand years ago, and I did a month over there working with Gaelic. It was brilliant because I was willing to go over and kind of do it like a sabbatical. And at that point, I actually was working full time, and bless them, they gave me time off to go and do this Gaelic job over there. But I remember going to Dunedin, which is a town in the South Island, very Scottish.
I was going to say it sounds
Dunedin, which comes from Dunedin, the Gaelic for Edinburgh. See, everything comes back to Gaelic. But I remember they had said, well, we've got a wonderful night for you with our Celtic society there. And when we went along, it was the most wonderfully crazy group of people that just were interested in music, and there were people playing medieval instruments, and somebody had a crumhorn. I didn't even know what a crumhorn was. No, he had found it at his medieval society, and he was playing praise tunes on the crumhorns. We get like When the Saints Go Marching In, that were then going into Gaelic tunes with somebody on the vegan bagpipes. And I was like, this is bonkers, but also brilliant. And we're on the other side of the world, and people have welcomed us in because of the language and the music. And I think there's an awful lot of stuff like that where you end up, like if you're a Gaelic speaker, everybody's done Outlander, some form of Outlander. If you are a singer or a musician, which normally involves you looking really rough. You know, there's never any makeup, you're in a weird wig, you're in horrendous clothing, outside for the whole day, and the cold and the wet. And you're like, there's something really lovely but mad about this. And I kind of love that you never really know what's going to happen. And if you're happy to say yes, like I end up, if you've anybody, this is very much local to Argyll, but have you ever heard of Craoladair Dam, which is a dam right up in the hills? I ended up there conducting the chanting for Andor, because they were filming in rural Argyll for Star Wars Andor, and I was in charge of chanting, and I had got that job because I conduct Gaelic choirs, and it was literally just me keeping everybody right and teaching them sounds for Andor. And you're like, this is bonkers. That we're meeting the directors of like the high up directors.
That's incredible.
Who were lovely, and we're like, do you want to come and see what we're doing? I was like, yes, I would. I would love to come and see what we're doing and get into all of that. But it kind of came because of something else. And I think that's a really interesting one. If you're willing to just sort of see what happens, sometimes you'll get funny situations, then you get brilliant situations. So you go, I don't know how I got here.
Who would have thought that Gaelic would lead to Star Wars?
I've been at Eurovision. I went to Eurovision because of Gaelic.
I'm so jealous.
I know.
The people that go on then, they've got the best stories. Definitely. I cannot go on then.
It's brilliant. And I think just being open and just being willing to give stuff a chance in that kind of way, you never know what's going to happen.
If you ever need a +1.
I'm taking everyone to the Gaelic dark side. It's wonderful.
Loads of people across the country will have seen you presenting the weather in the morning whilst they're eating their breakfast. Have you got any hints or tips as to how some young people could move into broadcasting?
It's interesting because I took a really odd journey to get there. I kind of came in initially really as guests on Gaelic, either radio or television, if they needed somebody to talk about a subject. I like talking, and basically, I know this will shock no one, but it was, again, it's kind of what I'm talking about. It's being willing to do stuff and being prepared. So sometimes they would phone me up with random subjects, going, "We're looking for someone to talk on this. Could you do it?" And I would say yes, and then I would go and research whatever topic that was. And it was really from that I had got asked then to maybe be a guest on panel shows, and then they were looking at somebody to like stand in as a host. And actually I started doing local radio when I was younger, and I just did it because I enjoyed it. It wasn't even that I thought there would be a work process in there, but I used to have my own wee show on Open FM in Gaelic called Còmhla agus crack, and I did everything. Like I did all the engineering. They just let me go. They were great. They just let me go in there and do whatever I wanted, and that was really useful for getting practical skills and getting used to talking, and genuinely for presenting. Going to Cayley's, standing up at Cayley's introducing my songs. Then quite often they'd be asking me to host Céilís, just getting used to standing up in front of people. And then for me it was that they were looking for initially just freelance cover for different jobs. And again, it was that thing like, do I think I can do this? And I wanted to get into broadcasting because I like that idea of it, but I couldn't seem to work out how to get in the first place. And now it's a wee bit more standardised. You can get a lot of apprenticeships through the BBC. But I tell everybody, find like local radio or local, if you've got a uni magazine, or you have to be good at working by yourself. You've got to be, it sounds really obvious, but like, can you write well? Can you spell? Can you make, write proper sentences? And it is not a glamorous job a lot of the time. And you're doing an awful lot of work that people don't see. When we're on the weather, we're a one-person group. So if there is a script to be written, like we write the script. The graphics you see on the television, I have made. I'm standing up in front of there with no script at all. I'm just talking from a story that's in my head because I've worked out what's happening and I'm retelling it, which is quite useful from doing singing. I was used to that. So I think it's like practical skills. It's being able to, particularly if you're wanting to do anything on the presenting front, but even behind the scenes, it's like, do you know how to tell a story? Are you organised? Are you quick? And understanding that most of the time it won't be glamorous. I mean, this morning my alarm went off at 5 to 3 in the morning. And that was me up at 3 o'clock so I could get ready wearing clothes I bought myself. There is no budget, I hate to tell you. I did my own hair, I did my own makeup, I got into the BBC, I did all my shift, but I was on my own. It wasn't that there was lots of people helping you and I swanned in and appeared in front of the television in this lovely glamorous role. That doesn't happen most of the time. So when you are lucky enough that you get somebody, they're like makeup fairies, and they come and they do your hair and your makeup and I look like a different person. If you ever see me looking really good, that's why. But that doesn't happen very often. Like actually, a lot of the time, it's very long working hours. We do 10-hour shifts. And actually, you will be tired. You'll be working quite often, particularly as a freelancer, you will be working on days and nights when other people are off. So you're going to have to understand that. If you would like every single evening and every single weekend off, this probably isn't the job for you. You're going to have to work really hard. But actually, from that, you're going to get an awful lot out of it. It's very enjoyable. You get to do a lot of fun things. And it is nice when people recognise you and they want to come up and say hello. And sometimes they tell you don't look like you do on the television. And we will say, is that a compliment? Is it not?
Don't ask.
We get a bit of both.
You can make your mind up about that.
But actually, that's not why you're doing it. If you're doing it for the kind of fame side, good luck, because it's really hard to do. Even, and I know that social media is very popular at the moment, but that's in some ways even harder because you have so many people out there trying to do the same thing. So it's kind of knowing what you can do, finding your niche, and then just working really, really hard. And if it doesn't, if where you want to go isn't there, don't worry, because quite often you can get to it from a side route around there, and just keep trying, working hard, doing what you can, and sort of who knows what will come up in the end.
Definitely. And I think as well, like you must have to have quite a thick skin, because with social media, it is, as soon as anything goes out, people have a comment on it, and it might be absolutely nothing to do with what you're talking about, and it can be things like, it can be looks, it can be accents, it can be everything. So it's having that sort of thick skin. Is that something you've had to develop, or were you quite, you're standing up at Céilís?
I come from a family of boys.
We
communities, you're very used to people, having an opinion on you and telling you that. But you do have to have a thick skin, because everybody has an opinion on your hair, what you're wearing, how you're talking. I'm very tall, which people will constantly tell you about. Or there's a lot of stuff like that. But that is the job, and you've also got to be able to take criticism. And and also understand, when is it criticism that actually, that will be useful for me. I will take that on board.
And what do you let wash
and what's
over
the stuff you let wash over you? And don't sweat the small things. And social media, anybody can be on there giving their opinion. Do you need to reply to said opinion? Sometimes the answer is yes, and other times no. It doesn't matter.
So it's part of the trade-off, you would say.
Absolutely. And again, it's, if you're going in for fame, it's
the wrong reasons.
Wrong reasons. It's probably not going to happen. It's like, are you going in because what you're doing that you enjoy? And the rest of it is just, it's all kind of embroidery really around the actual job and around the things you're getting to do, because you want to do your best at what you're doing and work with nice people and have fun whilst you're doing it, and everything else is a bonus, really.
Oh, I love that. That's exactly what we say to people. I'm like, yay. What with this, like, obviously we're kind of coming towards the end. What's next for you and the development of Gaelic in Scotland?
I mean, I would love it for Gaelic in particular. I would love it if everybody could learn a wee bit of Gaelic. I mean, I understand that's not something that's coming necessarily soon, but I think there's so many more opportunities now to learn, and I think people are getting a wee bit more maybe open to learning too. Gaelic's quite cool now. Particularly from the music. You know, you look at a lot of bands who are coming through. They're doing really. I mean, the fact that you've got now Scottish trad bands and they're hiring the hydro.
I know.
I mean, there you go.
Amazing.
That is the sign of the popularity, and you can really see now that it's quite fashionable to get into trad music and learn Gaelic. And
definitely.
So that's what you hope. That it's just going to keep growing. I talk a lot about normalisation, so it doesn't become like this special thing. It's like I know a wee bit of Gaelic, and I hear people speaking Gaelic, and I see it on the road signs. And I'm very much a more is more approach to everything. So just that you're seeing it and you're hearing it, and it becomes that sort of part of our cultural fabric in some ways. But I mean, what's next for me? Who knows is the answer. It's just keep it doing what I'm doing, and then always you're looking at what's my next project, what's the next thing I could do, and sometimes it's just taking the time to have that wee reset and think, what could I try? What could I try next? But
something exciting.
Hopefully something exciting.
I feel this sense of responsibility, like I do. I feel the sense of duty. I do, and that's just someone that's never so much as entertained it for a second, but. Like, why do I not know my own language?
Get on the Duolingo.
Absolutely.
Speak Gaelic is out there. All free resources.
I will definitely be looking tonight.
There's going to be thousands of people like myself that when they hear that, they go, of course, like, why not?
And more you open your eyes, you realise actually you're looking at place names or in pubs quite often you'll see like a falcha, a welcome, or quite often the lose. You'll see the signs for the male and the female, and it's just that kind of, it's the normalisation and not being worried when you're like, I've seen Gaelic written down and I don't know how to pronounce it. And you're like, I'll give that a go. Or then the next time it comes, you go, okay, that's not new because I've seen that before. So actually I do know how to pronounce this and I do know how to say this. And it kind of becomes that wee, just bickervake, little by little. You get there and it starts to feel part of you and not like you're worried about it. Like, get rid of that. Nobody is going to die. So it is that clach in your Kylie, like use it or lose it. So if you don't, you won't have anything left. And if we lose that, we just lose so much of our culture and our heritage and who makes us who we are. So
there is that. With that in mind, I feel like a responsibility. I need a Gaelic phrase. Can you teach us a Gaelic phrase, please, before we finish?
I mean, have you got anything in particular, or will I just go wild for you?
A fun one. I can't think of one. What would be a fun one?
Even just like if you're meeting somebody, you can have a jihadol.
Jihadol?
Which is like, what's doing? Jihadol.
Jihadol.
And that kind of opens up the conversation.
I would like something like a life saying. You know how you get like c'est la vie, like that's life, or like tuto passa, or whatever it is, everything passes, or something.
So now again, you'll see my bias here, but the long version, I'll give it to you in Gaelic, is Hic criach an túl ach maddi gúil agus ceol, which means Hic criach an túl, the world may end, ach maddi gúil agus ceol, but love and music will endure.
Oh, I love that.
So quite often you even just say the last bit, maddi gúil agus ceol.
I think that's in a Skipnish song, maddi gúil.
Maddi gúil. You are a Gaelic speaker.
I sing along to it, honestly.
Maddi gúil agus ceol.
I don't know the words.
Let's say it one more time.
Right.
Maddi
gúil
agus ceol. Maddi gúil agus ceol.
Maddi gúil agus ceol.
Maddi gúil. Well done.
Okay.
Hey, we're fluent.
It only took an hour.
Excellent.
Honestly, thank you so much for that. This has been it's been such a lovely conversation. I think I could keep you here forever.
I think if the two of us were here forever, we just wouldn't be talking.
So I'm looking forward to our trip to New Zealand. But honestly, thank you so much. And I think it's just been so lovely. And I think if everyone who listened to this could just learn one Gaelic phrase, I would be so chuffed. And honestly, thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for having me.